Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you and I can see your screen. Go ahead.
Oh, great. Okay. So, oh.
我不知道哪里有热水啊，就凉水。你今天要喝热的？热的就没有哎。
Oh, I can't copy the link. Okay. So today I will introduce our POC about FPG implementation in Cyborg and Nova. The POC we have I have discussed with Dorfer and also Sonda several times, and I have write implement some code, and it can work on the current Cyborg. So today I will do a demo for you, and then Dorfer will give more introduce about the POC. So I want to Dorfer. Oh, seems Dorfer didn't in the meeting. Not in the meeting. Okay. So. As I know, most driver doesn't have really FPG environment in on their host, so I make a fake FPG environment. Can see this graph. The generate CSS in sample.
华为这个英语，华为这个人的英语说的太差
了。
请静音。刚才是谁呀
？Okay. This is the FPG environment. So with this fake FPG environment, we can do our demo. Now, with Cyborg deployable API, we can get 3 FPG on my host. All of them are not bounding to any instance, and one of them is not assignable. The other two are assignable. So with with this API, we can see we have a claim to deploy about one, and all of them are assigned to instance. So we can see the resource class defined in here. One is okay. Sorry. One resource is the FPGA inter PF. Another is FPGA inter VF.
So this is the resource created, right?
This is a resource claim. Resource created is by the FPGA driver.
I think it's being reported, sort of thing.
Yeah. Yes. So no one can call this API to claim the FPGA resources that it wants.
Xiaohe?
Yeah.
Is that deployables / allocations endpoint, is that just simply a redirect to the placement API post allocations? Because traits are not consumable resources in placement. So I'm wondering what this / allocations is returning here. Does that make sense? My question.
Yeah, I know. Do you mean you?
So what is being returned here from / deployables / allocations is the instance UUID and the host, and then what looks like the extra specs keys from the flavor, which should be resources, resources 1, trait 1, all that kind of stuff. And what I'm trying to say is that the return from get allocations with a consumer UUID from the placement service does not include traits, because traits are not consumable. Howard, is that am I explaining that incorrectly?
Yeah, but the trace is used for the FPGA functional.
Sure, but it's not consumed. Yeah. I guess that's what I'm saying. So when you claim something, you need to consume some resource. The resource is the VF or the PF in this case, right? But you're not consuming a trait. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yes.
Maybe to clarify.
Without a trace, you can also claim resource. But you cannot program the FPGA. So let me show the definition of the resource class and the trace.
Shaukat?
Yeah.
I think you should probably clarify this POC was begun before the PTG. So some aspects of this may not be fully aligned with what we discussed in the PTG yet, right?
Sure. And that's totally fine, Sundar. I'm not. I'm just trying to point out that it would be good to align the concepts of placement with the concepts of Cyborg's allocations. That's all.
Absolutely, yes, agreed. Yeah.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. Shall go ahead, please.
Okay. So we claim the resource by resource class, but we program the FPG by traits. So here we can these traits. Traits one customer cyborg credit means the VF the FPG inter VF should be programmed with crypto. Okay, and for we can also release resources by this API. So we can here we can the instant UID is set to none. It's no longer bounding to any instance. So I think this is the demo, and maybe I think Doffer can introduce more details about the POC. Doffer, are you here?
Yeah, I just joined.
Okay.
So you have showed the demo for the POC and didn't introduce the EtherPad, right?
Yeah.
Okay. On the EtherPad, it's a brief introduction of the POC. And in that environment, we have two Intel FPGA cards, and one is present as a PCI physical function, and the other one is as a PCI virtual function in the placement resource inventories. And this POC is running on like emulated FPGA environments. So it's they are Shaohe has write some scripts to create device trees on the file system, so the Cyborg driver can recognize them as a faked FPGA device. So it won't depend on the FPGA hardware during the development to verify the Cyborg functions. And the POC code repo is put on the GitHub, and I have put the link on the POC code repo. And section 2 is a basic flow of the POC. So it includes first is enumerate devices and update placement inventories. The Cyborg FPGA driver will report devices. In our demo, there is one PF and one PF with VF. So on the from the placement, we can see two resources, two resource classes. Xiaohe, can you go back to the EasyPad? Yeah. And the Cyborg driver is already merged into the Cyborg. The Cyborg agent will call placement API to create the resource class and the inventories for placement API. So that's what done on the POC. We have defined two resource classes for this POC. It's a custom FPGA Intel PF and a custom FPGA Intel VF. We can discuss the formal format for that actually after the POC. And also we will put the trait format on the resource providers. The second item on the POC is to upload the FPGA images to Glance and put the metadata on that. So Cyborg will know which slot this Glance image can be programmed and what accelerated function it is.
But the 2.2 has been implemented?
Yeah, 2.2.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a periodical task in the Cyborg agent to pull the Glance images metadata and delta update the metadata to placement traits.
Oh, okay, I remember that.
Yeah. And I list the image upload command. It's just OpenStack image create with properties. But how we define the properties, we can discuss together within Cyborg team. And the 2.3 is we need to create a flavor. We need to create a flavor to include the accelerators. So this is syntax we are using. OpenStack flavor set with properties, resources, and trace defined. This example is a simple one, and we also support complex scenarios. So you can follow the spec pasted here for. So you can define multiple FPGA resources with different accelerator functions. Okay, go back to the EasyPad. I don't think we have time to go through this spec. It's very complex. Yeah. So from after all this set, user can specify this flavor to put an instance, and the Nova scheduler will choose a computer node according to placement and request the resource from the placement API. So there is no changes for this phase. It's all Nova standard behavior. And the 2.5 is after Nova placement have the allocation done, and it has choose the computer node to boot the instance. Nova need to call Cyborg API to have Cyborg really allocate the resources, because only Cyborg knows what the accelerator resource is. And Cyborg need to return allocated device list. It could so far is a PCI device, and it can support more device types like the MDEV. In the POC, we just return the all the data fields from the Cyborg database, but we can have a formal definition of the API API input and responses. So that part is in the discussion 3. From the Cyborg side, it needs to respond to Nova with allocated device, and it will find enough free slots and get image from the glance according to resource class and trace Nova passed, and program the image to slot, then return the PCI address to PCI device list to Nova, and then Nova can add the device to VM. So far, we are using the PCI devices which Nova already supported. We didn't we didn't write new code, so we just leverage that part. And then the Nova can put that instance with FPGA supports. Yeah, that's the overall flow of the POC we implemented. Any questions so far?
Broadly, I think we need to define a plan to update this POC to reflect the PTG discussions, right? Or we finally came up with that.
That may be there is a few open discussion listed below, so we can like modify the POC to match what the PGD discussed, and then upstream some of that. Because current like the FPGA resource class and the trait format and the Cyborg API are all yeah, we just write that without agreement with everyone else. It's just a prototype.
Sure.
Yeah, I think the custom resource class and custom trait are like okay. Starting with item 3. The question: do you mean whether with the introduction of the claim release API, shall we store the consumption information in Cyborg database or maybe in placement? Well, this is a question.
I think for the item 3 is to standardize Cyborg API to do the allocations, because from placement it just record the resource numbers, like user need 2 of this kind of resource, but placement don't have knowledge about which device this is.
Right.
What's the
So,
real device?
so the way to distinguish this is that allocations deal with just the integer amount of some resource. What you're referring to as allocations here is actually assignment, right? So the assignment
Yeah.
of a particular slot to a particular workload, or
Yeah.
a particular VF to a particular slot on the FPGA.
Yes, yes.
I'd recommend maybe renaming the deployables / allocations or whatever. I'd recommend renaming that to assignments, just so it's clearly differentiated between what the placements allocations concept is.
But I think this allocation step also contacts the placement, is it?
Yeah, that's the context of placement called allocations, but it's a little it's doing the same thing.
I think it's doing like 2 things at one time, right? It's like giving the assignment and update the allocation in the placement. Am I right?
Could you say that again, Lou?
Oh yeah, I think they're trying to do both things together. One is to make the assignment inside of inside of Cyborg.
Right.
And the other one is to update the quantities in placement DB.
Right. So
API.
the Nova scheduler will have already allocated an amount of PF or VF resources from the compute node itself. What the scheduler will not do is say, which slot on that PF the workload will be assigned to. So there won't be a need for the Cyborg agent to allocate resources from a resource provider. That'll already be done by the Nova scheduler before it even gets to the compute node. The only thing that the Cyborg agent would need to do is, if there is a problem in flashing a particular image to a slot, or if there's some out of band assignment of a slot which placement doesn't know about, the Cyborg agent would need to tell Nova, hey, I can't assign to this particular slot, and therefore delete the allocations. So that's what I'm saying, is that by the time the build request gets to the Nova compute, these resources, the custom FPGA Intel VF and custom FPGA Intel PF, will have already been allocated to the consumer, which is the instance CUID. So the only thing left for Cyborg to do at that point is just pick a slot, right, for a slot or more than one slot, depending on the traits, for that workload to be assigned.
Yes. This happened after the placement allocation.
Correct.
Oh. Okay, I see your point. Yeah.
So basically less work for Cyborg to do.
So does it mean we don't even need the claim release API, since
I think we still do, because we still need to update that part in the Cyborg database anyway.
Hi, Lilio, your voice is too low.
Sorry, I think you still need the release, because you still have to let Nova be able to release the VM or PM you assigned to somewhere, right? Can you hear me now?
If you're referring to
Deallocation.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, well, yeah. So there's the problem basically is that the PCI manager code has its own concept of allocated, allocated, available, and all that kind of stuff. That's more of the assignment things. If you're going to continue using the PCI manager code, yes, you will need to use that API to deallocate a device from an instance. That still needs to happen. It's called deallocate, but it should just really be called deassign or unassign or something like that. The resources in placement that are allocated to a workload, to an instance, those are generally deleted all at once, right? So if something goes wrong and Cyborg cannot assign an instance to a particular slot on the FPGA, what would happen is the delete allocations for instance call would be made, and all of the resources for that instance would be removed at the same time, and the instance would be rescheduled. Okay, what is that? What you were referring to, Leo?
Yeah, I think at least there should be a portal for a Cyborg for Nova to do that, right? Regardless if it's a
Cyborg would call out to Nova, basically raise an exception and say, hey, something happened when we were attempting to assign the instance to this particular slot or more than one slot. At that point, the Nova Compute Manager will just take over and say, okay, something wrong happened. Let's go ahead and delete the allocation and reschedule the instance. So as long as an exception is raised somehow, the compute manager on the host, the Nova Compute Manager on the host, will take care of deleting all of the allocations for that instance and rescheduling it.
For the unassigned part, though, shouldn't Nova Compute be calling into OSACC, which in turn should call into Cyborg, just like the assigned part?
OSSC? Sorry?
OSACC. In the PTG, we proposed the OSACC along the same lines, OSWIF and OSBRIC, right?
Yeah, it would. That's not in the proof of concept, though, right? It's using the PCI device management module.
That's true. I'm just talking about the future.
Yeah, in the future, for sure, it would be like a similar to unplug event in OSBIF. You need to call unassign or unplug or whatever the API command in the OSACC library would be.
Sure.
So a question for this, sound like we have a two-level scheduler again. So is there any risk condition like Cyborg can report inventory in each 10 seconds? That's because maybe the placement allocated something, but Cyborg didn't know that yet.
Alex, are you asking like if there's some, I don't know, network disruption or something where the Cyborg agent cannot report to the placement service an accurate inventory count? Will that affect the scheduling of instances to that compute node? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, it sounds cannot sync between the Cyborg and the placement. For example, if someone relays the device by the Cyborg API directly without the Nova compute. So
right. I'm not sure. I mean, I would assume that the placement API would report an incorrect amount of used inventory, and for some amount of time, if there's a disruption in connectivity between the Cyborg agent and placement. Yes. We have the same problem now. I mean, if someone uses